The advantage of a general drill like this is that you get a variety of opportunities. The disadvantage is that you don't learn any one specific skill. So now I want to give you some specific skills that have to do with the transition from standing to mat. When you practice with someone or fight with someone, you should try to make an analysis of what he is capable of doing. Now, sometimes you have been able, you know him well, people on your own team you know well. Other people, you have seen them in a tournament maybe 3-4 times. Or you ask your coach, because between Angelo and Craig, they have a tremendous amount of knowledge about other players that they have seen before, they know, and then you say, well, look, I got to fight this so-and-so, what does he use? And I say, well, he grips this way and he does a deep right uchimata, and if he fails, he sometimes comes out with goji. So you get as much intelligence as you can, and you make up your mind, first of all, what your defensive plan is going to be. Because if you're thrown, it doesn't do any good to be good offensively. If you lose in the first 30 seconds or first minute from a throw, all the rest of your judo doesn't count anymore in that match. So you must, as Sun Tzu said in the first verse of chapter 4, which is one of our favorite verses, anciently, skillful warriors first made themselves invulnerable. Couldn't be thrown, couldn't be beat. And then waited for the enemy's moment of vulnerability. And that's exactly, if you watch Yamashita, exactly what he does, or any good player. They set up their defense, and they're invincible, can't be thrown, and then they wait and cut the other person down. Faulkner against Jason Morris in the final of the Nationals a month ago. Beautiful, beautiful example. Morris has a very, very good attack plan. He'll get you moving if he can. If he can't, he'll sweep. And he has a devastating foot sweep. He's thrown just about off and on everybody. He's thrown some of the top Japanese fighters or European fighters that he's fought against with foot sweep. If you don't move, if you're afraid of his foot sweep and you don't move, he goes with uchimata. He just comes straight in for uchimata. So Faulkner knows his plan. So Faulkner says, okay, first I have to defend. I have to become invulnerable. He won't move. He won't move this way. So Morris can't sweep. So, of course, Morris goes to uchimata. Faulkner's ready. He got the hip. Morris and he has good uchimata. He banged in repeatedly, couldn't even lift Dave's feet off the ground. Because Dave, from the hip, he just unlocked his hips. And when he knew that if he wouldn't move and Morris couldn't sweep him, he was going to get the uchimata. And bam! He broke Morris's uchimata with just a hip turn. Repeatedly, So there's Morris, he didn't have anything. All his best stuff doesn't work, and then Dave went to work on him with his combination and got him with Sasai a couple of times, and Ochigari, and so forth. So, you make up your mind. You're going to, let's say you're working with somebody you've never worked with him before, and he knocks into you a few times, maybe even gets a croak on you, or he gets some good attacks, and you say, well, that's what he does, So, then you make up your mind what you're going to do about it, to counter it. You have, let's say, basically 2 choices. There are more than that, but let's say there are 2. One is when he attacks you to get around him. Let's say he's going to make drop ceiling. I know, he comes in banging and drop ceiling. So I have a choice to jump around this way and take him into that work, or he hits again. I have a choice to jump around this way. Now, if he's very fast, you're going to have trouble getting behind him. The better the player is, probably the more difficult it is to get behind him, because he's so strong and fast, and you try to go behind him, you just go in the air and he'll get you anyway. However, going behind him gets you into all kinds of good business. So going behind him, doing Tanya Otoshi, pushing down, very strong way of working on it. If you're going to go around him by jumping, you jump around and attack left. Now, if he makes a standing attack and you jump around him, then you should lock up left. Let's say he's going to make right harai. He makes right harai and I can get around. Then I want to lock up left because that's where he lives. That's I don't want to try to attack here. I want to attack here where his weight is. So he comes in right, and I can get around, then I'll lock up left. So that's the drill you're going to work on now. Time. It's very important in chokes for both people. The person who's being choked, don't give up till you start seeing colored lights. Hold as long as you can. One of these times you find it doesn't bother you. You'll develop the sternocleidomastoid, which is a muscle that attaches to the mastoid process and comes down, splits and attaches partly to the clavicle, partly to the sternum. It's a very heavy muscle. And if you develop it, you'll finally get to the point where it doesn't make any difference. You just have to work on it. There used to be a guy out in California named Don Carollo. He'd lie on his back on the mat, put a pole across his neck. The guy's standing on either end of the pole, and he'd go, get his head out. Couldn't choke him. Couldn't choke him. He trained himself. He trained himself. All great athletes train themselves. When Ty Cobb was playing, great shortstop, after everybody went, he'd get somebody staying, pitch balls to him, and he bumped the ball, and he put his sweater halfway out to third base and halfway out to first base, and he got to where he could bunt and put the ball on the sweater every single time. So when they got Ty Cobb to sacrifice bunt, they knew they were going to bunt right. Now that's impossible, you say. Yeah. Except if you train yourself. He used to do another thing. He used to practice running the bases as fast as he could possibly run with his head over his shoulders. He knew he had coaches, but he still wanted to see what was going on out there in the outfield. So he'd run first base and practice looking out into the outfield, never looking for second base, feeling for second base and third base with his head over his shoulder. But he was an athlete who was willing to pay the price. He said, this thing is achievable, and I can achieve it, and I will through training. Training, that's all it takes. So, train yourself to do these things exactly. When they choke you, don't give up too easy. Turn your head a little bit. One time when I first started judo, some old 7'9" came to our dojo. He said, choke me. None of us could choke him. I suppose if we'd been stronger, we could have. We said, how'd you do that? He said, well, you know, there's always a wrinkle there somewhere. There's always a little wrinkle in your gi. I just move around and I find the wrinkle. I get a little air. I don't worry about these things. So you think about that. Resist that choke. And put it on, and when he taps, you know he's seeing colored lights, so you better let go. Sometimes I demonstrate quite briskly, with vigor. But I want you to get used to that. You should get used to practicing that way. So, oh my goodness, they're too rough. Learn to work with rough. Practice them. The 90 and 9. And you may have, Tennessee Ernie sings it. You may have heard it. Everyone has his favorite hymn. And that's one of mine. It simply says there were 90 and 9 who safely lay in the shelter of the fold. They were sheep. But one was out on the hills far away, far off in the realms of gold. And it just tells about the shepherd saying, I love these 90 and 9, but I'm worried about the one that has gone away. So he went out on the hillside and he got that sheep. And you may have seen pictures, sometimes in Sunday school maybe, you saw a picture of a shepherd holding the little lamb on his shoulders and coming back. It illustrates the way good coaches, great coaches, feel about their athletes. Yesterday morning, some of our athletes weren't here. Some of the NJI team wasn't here. I look around and I always say, where's Todd Brady? Where's Mark Pujo? Where's, and so forth. It's an important aspect of our lives that judo is meaningful to us. And that those of us who are serious about the game are very, very concerned about those who are truly interested. Once one of you becomes interested in judo, truly interested in judo, then we'll never be separated for the rest of our lives. Because you can pretty well say that I doubt if the people in this line are going to quit judo. So if you stay in the game, you'll have friends for life. And we're very concerned about that because we think of the great things that judo can do for you, but we only think of it that it's possible in the long term. It is not possible in the short term because your whole life has to be realigned and reprogrammed. We have been from the very beginning subjected to all sorts of negative programming that has been piled on us. Without our choice, without our permission, without anything. Some of it's intentional, some of it's unintentional. Some people try to manipulate us, and other people just do what they think is right, but it isn't right for us. So we have arrived at the age of 7, let's say, when we start to make choices at age 7 and 8. A baby, when they're 3 or 4, if their father says that's wrong, as far as they're concerned, their father's God. And they're wrong. But later on, when you get to be 8 or 9, you start making choices. You say, wait a minute. You said that was unfair. It wasn't unfair. And I'll explain to you why, and so forth. So you can start making choices and valuing. But you're still saddled with all this conditioning that you may not even be aware of. Then you reach, God willing, some time in your life when you not only can value and not only can understand what is right and what is wrong, but you understand that you are in charge of the future. And no more anymore in your life do you have to say, I wonder what's going to happen. You don't wonder anymore what's going to happen. You make it happen. Now, if you can get that concept in your mind, then you have something that's a magnificent idea. Say, you mean I make my own future? Yes. Absolutely and emphatically, you make your own future. Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. You mean it isn't all just an accident? Nope. It's not an accident. You can do with your future precisely and exactly what you want to do. Wow. That's heavy. Right. That's heavy. And it is very simple, isn't it? You construct the kind of life you want to lead, and then you lead it. But I didn't say it was easy. Because you have this great barrier of negative programming. So you start to recognize all the negative things that happen in your life and the negative thoughts you have, and you start to eliminate them, and you start to reprogram yourself and change your future the way you want it to be. And that's what judo training is. Judo training gives you the strength to change your future, and that's what judo is. Judo is a training method whereby you learn to change your future. Katie and Valerie cannot sweep forward at this time. They can do harai tsurukumiyashi. Give me one more day, and they'll learn, because they're so good at hooking, huh? They've swept so long, and they're so good at hooking that way that they haven't yet learned to do this. But we can train them to do that. And in another few hours of training, they'll be able to do harai tsurukumiyashi. And then they'll say, I can change it. And this will carry over into their lives, and they'll understand they can change anything. So you must understand this operates with everyone. I've been worried for years about Bill Horby. And he said to me the night he got here, we dropped him off at the hotel, and he said, well, I'm home. And he's the 90th, the 100th. And why is it that Bill is, you know, there was a period when I didn't do so much judo nationally. I had my own club. And there was even a year there when I only practiced, I didn't even practice 3 times a week, you know. But that was a temporary time. I was doing some building business. I was building houses up in the mountains. So all of us have had these periods when sometime in our life, our job or something has changed our life and we couldn't do judo. Of course, we kept it in our minds, couldn't do as much. This happened during the war, World War II. A lot of people were away from it. They practiced wherever they could, so forth. But they come back, and then they're even stronger than before. But what is this that they come back to? It isn't just doing judo on the mat. What they come back to is the realization that they're back in the judo family again, stronger. Always were, but now stronger. And they're a part of something great. It's a magnificent thing for you to think, yes, we're going to win 10 gold medals in the Olympics of 1996, and I'm part of it. And I know those people, and I've been on the mat with those people. And so this magnificent thing of being part of a great effort is rewarding to you, and you can imagine how rewarding it is to us, because we have helped in some small way to help an athlete be as good as they can be, which means a great deal. And the time will come when one of you, or the people you teach and work with, will be on the Olympic gold medal victory stand. And the United States flag will go up, and then everybody with tears in their eyes will sing the Star-Spangled Banner. And the reporters will gather around the athletes, and they'll ask them how they did it. And the coaches will be standing back there crying or laughing and hugging each other, and they'll know that they had a part in it too. You're like the head of a spear, but it takes power behind that spear. That's why I'm so happy that Bill has, these last 2 years, come and helped at the NJI. Never forget that you're part of this great movement. Never forget that you control your own future. And the future, this great movement that we already have and we're going to make even better, has been made because other people, you included, have decided they will change the future. Once you decide to change the future and commit yourself to changing the future, then you will get the power. Don't worry about the power. First comes a commitment. And I hope we're halfway through this camp. It's a fine camp. You've learned a lot. Now commit yourself to, for the next 2 days, to getting every ounce of judo you can get out of the camp, and we'll do well. All right, good. Let's do rolling. If you have trouble now with Ashiguru, part of it is because you have not trained yourself to listen, and you have not trained yourself to observe, and you are not aware of the details, the little teeny parts. What is going to the moon? Simple. Neil Armstrong told us. He said, going to the moon is no big deal. You break it down into 7,136 absolute, positive tasks that have to be done. You start with the first one. When you get to the 7,392nd, you've got to the moon. What's the big deal? Judo is not some big nebulous cloud, you know. It is precisely in exactly what you do. What should your right hand do? What should your left hand do? What does your foot do? What does your hip do? You must find these things out. Complexity, differentiation in complexity is the secret of evolution. What is the difference between an amoeba, a one-celled animal, and a magnificent judo champion? They're both living organisms, both animals, say, yeah, but Judo man can do a lot more things. Well, what? Oh, is that so? He can do a lot more things. Why can he do a lot more things? Well, he has hands, right? He's more complex. He has eyes, that's right. He's more complex. He has a brain, that's right. He's more complex. He has many, many functions that he can do. A human being can play a sonata with his fingers on the piano. An amoeba doesn't even have fingers. So, what is the use of having fingers if you don't use them? What is the use of having all this tremendous prehension ability if your hands are dead, huh? What is the use of having eyes if you don't see? So you must train yourself to know precisely every single. There's only 65 throws in Kodokan Judo. There's only 65. You probably know the words to 400 songs, which are dibble-dabbling in and out of your brain, and commercials. This is the negative programming you have to overcome, huh? The garbage that is thrown at you. And as you memorize uselessly, memorize something that's worthwhile. Concentrate on something that's worthwhile. You know, I say this again and again, and I'll say it now. I go around this country, time after time, month after month, year after year. I get groups of people together. I tell you, I look through their heads, and I count the bricks in the wall on the other side. There's nothing going on in there. And then every once in a while, I look around, I want to demonstrate, and there's some kid over on the side up on his toes like this. And he's saying, take me, coach, take me. I say, yeah, I'll work with you. Thank you. Because I've got a live one, you know? Somebody that has some zap and some power. And that's what you have to find, that zap and that power. How does it come from? Commitment. Commitment. You say, I'm going to learn. Steel walls start to melt down then. Because with that commitment comes power. Observe carefully. Ashiguruma. My goodness. 4 get so tired they cannot get up off the ground. And he throws the ball at him and he protect himself like that. See, it's inhuman. It's inhuman. And then you have Fujimoto, huh? Who won his gold medal on the rings with a broken leg in 1976 in Montreal. So they shot him full of painkiller, put him in a lightweight cast. He worked on the rings, did his dismount off the rings, a double flyaway, and landed on his broken leg, and you could see him go. Gold medal for his team. Next day they had an interviewer, a reporter, and Fujimoto's sitting there in his warm-ups with a big cast on the gold medal, and the reporter said, well, that was terrible. You jumped off the rings, and you must have hurt your foot. How could you possibly do that? And Fujimoto looked at him. Is this guy human? You know, is this a real human being I'm talking to? He said, he just couldn't understand. You don't understand? He said, look, that's the gold medal for the team. What does my ankle matter? What difference does my ankle make? We want a gold medal for our team. We have an ideal. And we sacrifice for our ideal. We accomplish great things because we are willing to sacrifice for our ideal. There is no coach that's worth his salt that will not get his players to the point where they cry and break down and say, I can't do it. And then the coach says, oh, yes, you can. Do it again. And then after a while, the player does it. And the player comes back, and it's happened to all of us coaches many times. And he says, I did it. And the coach says, yeah, I told you. I've seen it. John Ross and I were working with a young man at the Olympic Training Center years ago, and we were trying to get something to him, and he couldn't get it. He said, and two of us, Ross is quite demanding. I'm not demanding, I'm a regular film coach, you know. But he's demanding. And the two of us were standing there, do it this way, not do it, come on, whoa. And he couldn't get it, tears streaming down his face, And he did it perfect. And he came up like that, and he looked at us with this beautiful look on his face. I got it. I said, yeah, sure. No big deal, you got it. We knew you'd get it. So that's the way that you have to treat the shooter, huh? What is to be gained from no sacrifice? Nothing. What is to be gained from no commitment? Nothing. It's all just a little video game then when you don't. That's not the way Judo is. Judo is something you put your heart into, and when you do that, your heart gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you get to be a real human being some way. Don't be satisfied to be like the mass, because the mass is just a mass. Be a God man. Be a God woman. Get closer to that eternal ideal, huh? And all of a sudden, people will say, what did they inject him with? You know, wow, look at the way he stands. When you come out on the judo mat, huh? It's ready to fight. And you step out there, the other guy says, oh my goodness, it's going to be a long afternoon. Coach Sweet was at the Olympic Training Center a few days ago, and he saw two of our players, one of whom is the number one in his division now, and the other is second. But for years, the fellow who is now second was first. And he always beat the second place man until the last trials. In the last trials, the second place man, he's younger. He came up and he won. And Coach Sweet's comment was, the loser lost that 1,000 times. He's losing it every day. But the winner is winning it every day. Huh? So, when you're down, don't stay down. Get your head up. And strive to go higher. Eventually, your ultimate object is to surpass yourself. That's very nice. It takes work. Never be afraid, Valerie, and all of you, to love and be loved. Never be afraid to get excited. Never be afraid to say, that shines. I like that. I'm excited about that. I'm interested in that. Nowadays, young people, I think they should be cool, you know? And kind of laid back and not excited about anything. Nothing really matters. Somebody will always take care of me. Well, they won't. Your responsibility is your own. So it's all right to say, yeah, I'll try. Yeah, I like that. I'm excited. I feel bad, I'm going to cry. I feel good, I'm going to laugh. I'm going to sing. Be ready to let yourself be emotional about beautiful things, because it will help you to be a better athlete. Who has won the World Championship 4 times. Only one. His name is Fuji. And he came one time to Alaska a year or so ago. You know, it's something you should think about. The championship is a thing of the moment. It's like a flower, huh? The Japanese have an idea. Cherry blossom. Blooms beautifully and goes. Go ahead, the championship is like that. So I make a point when I go somewhere to talk to people who are no longer champions. And I saw Wolfgang Hoffmann in 1972 in Munich. And he was standing all alone watching, all by himself, Olympic silver medalist. I walked over to him and I said, your name is Hoffmann? He said, yes. I said, I can't forget how you took Seiki with Juji Katami in the Tokyo International Sports Week, or how you took the silver medal in the Olympics. And it made him feel good, you know? Well, the same thing happened with Fuji. He was in Alaska, the Cup, remember? In Anchorage. And he was coaching. And I found somebody who could speak a little Japanese. I said, would you please introduce me to Mr. Fuji? Went over, introduced me. And I said, you tell me, I simply wanted to shake the hand of the only man in the world, in all time, who won 4 times the World Championship. And it made him happy, you know, because he's over there as a coach. He figures nobody even knows who he is. We know who he is. When he got ready for his 4th World Championship, he began to make his plan. Every athlete makes a plan. You should have a plan for the Junior Olympics. What is your plan for next year's Open and so forth? And he began to examine his whole technical repertoire. And he found that he could do no technique, not one, without hurting himself. So many broken bones, so many broken, twisted shoulders and joints. He couldn't do his, in the beginning, his specialty was seoinage. But he said his back was so bad he couldn't do seoinage. He could do no technique and throw himself into it with all his force, except tomoe-nage. So he said, all right, I win the world championship with tomoe-nage. So he did. He won the whole thing with tomoe-nage. He's thrown against the wall. They whack their heads. They get thrown down. Sometimes they hurt their elbow. Sometimes their knee. They do it over and over and over again. I walk over and I say, excuse me, you're getting hurt every time you get thrown down. Shouldn't you stop that? Wouldn't it be a good idea if you accepted responsibility for your own safety? They just look at me. Well, I didn't know I was responsible. Oh. That reminds me of Punch and Judy, you know? Punch and Judy, the puppet show. Punch comes in and he says, Judy, where's the baby? And she says, well, I threw him out the window. I thought maybe you were passing and catch him. You know, no, I'm sorry. That's not the way you do things. I didn't know it was my responsibility. I thought maybe, you know, somebody come along and catch me. Nobody's going to come along and catch you. It's your responsibility to be safe. It is also the thrower's responsibility. But primarily, the thrower is concentrating on the throw. He's thinking about the throw. So the one who is thrown must exercise special care for his own body. Okay? So, if you're up against the wall or against the window, somebody says, I'm going to throw you, or something, you say, wait, move over here. I like a little mat behind me, if you don't mind. So, I don't care who he is or what he is. If you're in an unsafe position, say, stop. All right, let's go over here. All right, fine, go ahead. And Judo people develop eyes in the back of their head. There, you can't hit them from behind. They're always looking behind them. As a matter of fact, there's nothing else. That's all there is. Just keep the eyes at the back of the head. Am I right? See. Does a police officer get killed if he has eyes in the back of his head? Not likely. There's a famous story about that. I tell you the story. Does a young man want to learn the sword? Why not? Have a war story. He wanted to learn the sword. So he's practiced. He became very good. And he finally asked all his teachers, he said, who is the best swordsman in the world? They said, well, it's a little old man. He lives up on the mountain. He doesn't practice anymore with a sword. He's too old. He just fixes his garden. And so the young man said, I'm going to find him. You teach me the ultimate swordsmanship. So he went up in the mountains, and a little old house. The old man comes to the door. He says, I want to learn the sword. The old man says, I don't teach anyone. Slam the door. So he slept outside the old man's door for 3 days. He wouldn't eat, he wouldn't drink, and he slept there for 3 days. Lay there. Finally, the old man keeps looking at him. All right. Okay, come on in. You sleep over there. Your job is to sweep, do this, do that. So a couple of months goes by. The young man's in the house, he's over in the corner, he sweeps every day, he fixes the vegetables in the garden, and he gets a little irritated. He finally says to the old man, look, if you don't mind, sir, I came here to study swordsmanship because you're the greatest swords teacher in the world, but I don't learn anything. Please, could I have sword training? And the old man said, okay, tomorrow we begin. So the next day, the young man gets up and he's sweeping the floor. The old man jumps out from behind, around the corner of the home, and hits him in the back of the head with sticks and knocks him cold on the deck. Boom. And from then on, for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, this young man's life is absolute hell. Because he can never tell where the old man will come from. The old man will be working in the garden, you know, like with it, and wow, let him have one. He can't even sleep at night. He goes to sleep at night, has to sleep with one eye open. It's terrible, huh? But finally, he gets to the point where the old man can't get him. He just can't get him. He's too wary. He's like an animal in the woods. He's like a coyote, you know. He's like this. You can't touch him with a stick, see? And one day, everything is cool, and he goes out in the garden, and he sees the old man is down. He's fixing vegetables in a pot with a fire, and it has a pot lid like this. And he's fixing vegetables, and the young man behind him, and he sees him. And he sees this terrible desire to hit the old man in the back of the head with a stick. So he grabs a hole, and he comes up on it, and the old man takes a pot lid and catches it on the pot lid. He said, you see, training is over. Anyway, that's the idea. Everything in judo is watching behind you. There's nothing else. Watch behind you. You can't get caught. If you can't get caught, you'll eventually get him. That's what it's all about. So accept responsibility, please, for not getting hurt. From this instant on, you say to yourself, my body is like water. No, I don't get hurt. Not me, please. Of course you're going to get hurt, but not silly, stupid hurts. You get a lot less when you train yourself properly, huh? So train yourself not to be hurt. All right. National champions 20 years ago, something like that, started putting up a picture of each one in the lobby of his club in San Bruno, California. But then the walls got covered. Sometimes we go to junior nationals and he placed 1, 2, and 3 in 2 or 3 or 4 divisions. Those are the days of Billy Wolf and I can't even remember all the names. Steve Matulik, Brett Barron, of course, was an Olympian. Corinne Shigimoto, who is now was Corinne Kennison. The whole Kennison family, about 4 of them were all national champions here for women. So I don't know if Willie ever took the trouble to list all the people who were placed in the nationals from his club. But the total will be somewhere in excess probably of 300. That's a lot. He's the coach of the Pan American team this August, 2 weeks from now, in Indianapolis. He's here with his team, and we are delighted to see him and wish him well. Someday, God willing, we'll give you athletes from this whole nation that will do even better than your team will do it in Indianapolis, although I'm sure it will do very well. Well, he's had a career in coaching internationally, which has spanned quite a few years, and I had the happy experience of going to Holland with him in 1981 with the American team fighting the Dutch Open, and just winning over there. Jimmy Woolley was with us that year. I was the manager. But the way we did it, we split all the athletes up, and the ones that knew them best coached them, and we did very well. Good team. It was a wonderful experience, too. It's a wonderful experience to have him on the mat. If you can find time, at any time, just to come and wander out on the mat, we'd like to have him. What can you tell these young people about how to be a champion?
Make it only 20%. Really going to help you. That 20% all that knowledge. Work on it. You learn Tai Toshi here. And what do you have to understand? Everybody is different, physical. What Bill might do, I might do, Wally might do, might not be good for you. Learn a Tai Toshi, learn for you, your own body. So many years we've learned Judo. This is the way to do Tai Toshi. We all have to try to imitate. The only person you imitate is when you look in the mirror. That's who you imitate. Imitate yourself. And good, ready to the play. technique, excellent. What I'm doing is good. Make it work for you. You know, a lot of students, I could never do Usumada. Every one of my students won national championships on Usumada. I taught them one way, and they had to make up their own way to do it. And it's important. That guys did Sianagi. They do better Sianagi. I teach Sianagi all the time. Work with a lot of our players. One of my guys was third in the world. And I taught him Sianagi. And he's terrible Sianagi. He got third in the world. Because he changed his own way. That's important. Learn the technique. Remember, your body is different from a person's teaching. Make it work for yourself. Thank you, thank you. I'll be here tomorrow.
One time, I had Wally and I, Coach said, it will be here tomorrow. One time, my team beat his team. 1975.
Big mouth?
And I'll tell you how that happened. I went down to Los Angeles, I've been on a tour. And ran into Willie and he said, your team beat mine. I said, come on, knock it out. It takes 40 to a tournament, maybe I'd have 8, 10, 12 from Zenbei. Wally and I coached in Zenbei. He said, no, you really took the team trophy. I said, you're pulling my leg. He said, no, it's true. They cheated. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, they made us beforehand pick one athlete in each class or something. And we could only have on our fighting team, the team for scoring, one athlete in about 7 divisions. And he said, my team took 6 gold and 1 silver, and your team took 7 gold. And we used to cherish that team trophy like everything, because it was the only time we ever beat Willie's team. And I was gone while I was coaching. I was gone about a month, it was a long tour, running clinics around. And I came back and I said, Willie, I wasn't even here. And I said, maybe I should just stay away. And Wally said, we thought of that. That's a true story. Let me read you something before we get to work. I was chatting with one of our team members during lunch, and I said something about Kipling's poem, If. And it was inane, and she happened to be familiar with this poem, so I got my old book of poetry that's ragged from use. I used to carry it in the Grand Canyon. I found a card in there. Yeah, a card. It says, what we read? It's an old card of yours. It was in my book. But anyway, give it back to me, even for a marker. Anyway, that's years and years old. But anyway, it just shows you how close our relationship. This is a poem called If by Rudyard Kipling, famous British poet. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet, don't look too good, or talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear the truth you've spoken, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life for broken, and stoop and build them up again with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose, and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, And so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can walk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more? You'll be a man, my son. Roger Tickler. Vern Borgen asked me this morning about some of the things we talk about and whether we ever put them down in a training guide. And the answer is yes. We have a team notebook. And every once in a while I put something on a computer and frame it and give it to our team. And soon we'll put all that together in a booklet. And it'll be available to all of you. Meanwhile, during camp, every time from now on, I'll bring something down from our team notebook, like Press On, or one of those things, or Conference. The part of judo that we're talking about, when I read a poem or something to you, is the part that's most important, because that is the part that brings you up so that you can make your judo better. It starts here and here. Then your judo gets better. When you understand what you are, then you can do judo. And what is it that you are? You are now, you always have been, and you always will be a perfect human being. And your life is nothing more than a voyage of discovery to find your true self. When you realize that, your life expands, and the judo becomes a joyful thing. Life should be filled with joy, and is filled with joy, when you realize who you are. Like the lion cub. Okay, let's... That's what's called a right split.
But you're still trying to teach it.
Now, we have a couple of unexpected presents. Those are always the best. To Phil Ellis. Now, I tell you why I'm giving him this poster. Last night when I finished, you know, I'm always yapping about cleaning up the dojo, make sure you don't throw anything down. And after the workout, we had some photographs to take in the Hall of Fame. And I was walking out, and here's Phil with the vacuum cleaner, cleaning up, helping. And it's a vital thing to me to have you respond. Life changes only as a result of some stimulus. You go along and go along and go along, and things go along about the same. And then some stimulus changes you. And it's good to be a part of an organization or an institute like this, which can change people's lives. Bob Carr was telling me that Scott Hunt, where's Scott? There he is, came to camp last summer, and that camp last summer made a lot of difference to him. He kind of got on fire from being here. Whatever we did, whoever was here to teach him, many different people, touched him in a certain way. And he's 10 times the judo player he was a year ago because of his determination as a result of coming to camp. And when I saw his sister Dana sitting up so straight the other night, and I commented on it, I had forgotten Dana, forgotten her name. I knew her, but, and then she came up to me afterwards and everything flashed back in my memory. We had a clinic in March, and Dana was not sitting up straight. And I made a comment about it, and from then on, her back is like a straight as an arrow. And she's established a new habit. And that new habit will come to her rescue again and again and again over her life. The habit of being precise in your posture. It's a very important habit to be precise in your posture. To stand as you should stand. To be alert. It isn't just a custom. It's a judo person is alert. Should be alert. Anyway, this is to Phil for helping. Thank you. I came in this morning and looked out the window. I always look out the window because it gives me so much pleasure to see so many young people practicing. And I saw a young man practicing what Leo White taught last night. Wrist drag, step over, and so forth. And he was working with a purple belt, and it's Jason. And I want to give him a poster. Here's the guy. Thank you. Here's a guy who was interested enough in the judo to be down here working on what he learned last night beforehand. And I'm proud of him. We're all proud of him. Bruce Springsteen plays judo. And we had a workout with him last fall. Elaine and I were on a clinic tour, and we had a special morning workout in the club where he works in New Jersey. And how many of you know who Springsteen is? Raise your hand. You've heard of him. Okay. Well, I hadn't heard of him. Somebody said, Bruce Springsteen's in judo. And I said, that's nice. So is Sam Spade. Now, what's next? And they said, no, Bruce Springsteen. And I said, oh, yeah, that's nice. Well, what are we working on today? And they said, no, it's Bruce Springsteen. He's in judo. I said, who the hell is Bruce Springsteen? They said, well, he's a singer. And I said, well, that's nice. At any rate, he's a nice person. You don't know what to expect when you get a big entertainment figure. And I've met several celebrities like that over the course of a long life, and I've always been pleasantly surprised. And we were in the case of Bruce. And it was a kind of a fun workout because he's a very good athlete. He's quite strong. He's 37, where he was last fall, maybe a little older, a year older now in age. I may have turned a birthday. But he was 37 and very fit and obviously in good condition. There were about 5 or 6 of us there. And he's only been in judo a few months, and I don't think he has a chance to practice a lot. But he did work out with us. We did some drills, and then we finally did randori. And Elaine was sharp, and he's quite heavy. I'd say he's about 180. And he threw her a couple of times, and then she was just working easy with him. And then she said, "Are you ready?" And he went like that, and she threw it. Anyway, we got talking afterward and learned some things about his career. And I wanted to pass them along to you because it's so important that you understand the meaning of the word persistence. Springsteen said that he started his band when he was 17 years old and didn't have any success to speak of till he was 31. 14 years. Now, he worked very hard. When I say success, he was known, but he was broke. He told us when my picture was on the front cover of Time magazine, I think he said, I was $1 million in debt at that time. We were stone broke. And it wasn't until he was 31 that he was able to fight his way out of the financial problem and get into the black in the ledger. And I said, 14 years. He said, yes, 14 years. Now, you know how long those people practice. A band of his caliber probably practices 4 or 5 hours a day. And I ask you, would you practice judo for 14 years, 4 hours a day, and never win a tournament and keep right on practicing? I'm not so sure, huh? Persistence is the answer to everything. Talent is not the answer. The world is full of talented people who don't use their talent. Education is not the answer. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence is omnipotent. Anything will wear away if you keep going after it. Now think back to what Leo White said last night. He said that he started when he was 9, but he never won much until he was quite into his teens. 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Ed Liddy is the same way. Ed came back from Oklahoma, by the way, beyond the map. He's making a phone call. He told us that he never won anything when he was a junior. He never won a national championship. He just kept his head down and kept going. Another one is Jimmy Martin, who has won the senior nationals 7 or 8 times and is on the world championship team this year. Martin never won a junior national championship. He was too little. When he was 16, he weighed about 90 pounds. And I remember so well because it came from Zenbei, the coach that Ben Campbell and I coached in Sacramento. And Martin just got beat. He'd go into the lightest division he could find, even as a senior. He'd just come off the mat bleeding. He just got mauled to death, going in against 140 and 150 pounders weighing 110. And it was quite well along in his career before he succeeded. But you can see what happened to these people. Leo White, Ed Liddy, Jimmy Martin. They developed in the process of losing so much, or of being average players, this tremendously strong, hard diamond-like character, this unremitting determination to keep going and to make themselves a great judoist. And I'm sure in their teenage years, many of them never thought, Leo White never thought someday he would be 4 times world scissum champion, gold. He just decided he wanted to keep going with it. And you make that decision too. Make the decisions. You want to keep going. Don't worry about being a gold medalist or something. Make the decision to be good. Make the decision to conquer yourself. And this is very important. And in Japanese judo, there's very little concentration on championships. Oftentimes you'll go to dojos in Japan, and they just play judo. They don't say, well, I've got a big tournament 2 months from now and so forth. Their aim is to be better at judo and get it in their hearts. To get the judo in their bodies. To be something, not to win a medal, but rather to be something. And when you set out to be the best you can be, that's a much more difficult job than winning a gold medal. Because you can sometimes win a gold medal in one tournament or another quite easily. Maybe you get a good draw. Maybe the toughest opponent you have stubs their toe coming on the mat and breaks a toe and can't fight. Or has a little accident, or gets unlucky. You have a hot streak and everybody else has a weak streak. And you win a gold medal, or 2 or 3. But you're still not your best. And that's what Miyamoto Musashi meant when he said, when you cut with the sword, you cut down through their body and their heart and their soul and cut into the ground. That's cutting. Now, if you slash and he dies instantly, it's still just a slash. It's what you did in your heart that makes the difference, huh? And this is very reassuring to you. It's very good for you. Because you say to yourself, well, wait a minute. That means I can measure my progress myself. That's right. You mean I could be great at judo and never be a world champion? That's right. You mean I could be a great judo player and never even be a state champion because I'm the best I can be? That's right. And that's a beautiful thing, to know that you can be truly #1 by always attempting to surpass yourself, not the competition. So it's the inner thing you develop that makes you a great judoist. And we are all in this process. I am struggling to make myself the kind of a person that you can respect. And it's a struggle, and it always will be, but it's a struggle that we all welcome. So keep that idea in your mind. Press on. No matter what. Press on. Keep trying. And measure your victories by what you did yesterday, what you did yesterday. If you are personally getting better and developing in your character and in your judo, then you have nothing to worry about. Don't measure yourself only by championships. Those are fun, and you should participate in contests and randori and that sort of thing. But the real test is what you have gained in your heart, and you know, you all know, when you are making progress with your character and your judo, you know. And that's the source of satisfaction, which is the greatest thing that there is in judo. So, now we've taken 15 minutes, but thank you for listening.